to get started. I'm going to give people time to get here. It's obviously still early, but probably won't really get started till about 10 after, just because of timing and people getting off work. So just to give you all a heads up.
Are you back on this side of the pond?
I am, but I'm in New York. I moved to New York.
Cold yet?
Yeah. Oh my God, it's that wind. It's the wind that gets you. Like, it's a beautiful sunny day today, but the wind just demolishes you. I have this sort of funky lighting. I need to fix my lighting situation here.
Hi, Maureen. How's it going?
Hey, Humphrey. Good. How are you?
Good to see you.
You too. Where are you at? You got a big, what is it behind you?
Oh, it's actually, I'm sitting at a cafe in San Diego.
Oh, which one?
Lestats.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I know Lestats. I'm from San Diego.
Oh, yeah. No, we had spoken about that.
Yeah. Right.
You told me about the ice cream place.
Yeah.
What was the name of it again? I actually never
Which place?
You told me about a really great ice cream place. You said there was a really that you loved.
Salt and Straw. Salt and Straw.
That was it. Yeah, I have to put that down.
There's another one that's like over near there that's really famous.
Okay. What's it called?
Oh my God. What is it called? It was like owned by two hippies.
Oh, okay.
Sherlyn, no, I cannot give you. It was owned by a couple of hippies.
Okay.
Oh, it's like right on that busy street in Normal Heights.
Oh, no, okay.
And it's like
Well, I saw a pie place. Is there a pie place there?
No,
it's like
they might have closed it.
Maybe it's South Park. There's a pie place.
Yeah.
I just saw that last week.
Oh.
But anyway, you moved to New York?
Yeah, I moved to New York recently.
Moved to New York. Oh, great. What neighborhood?
I'm in Tribeca.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I'm in Tribeca, but I'm looking in West Village too. But I like Tribeca.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, good. Well, we have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. I'm really happy here.
Yeah. Well,
hello. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Hi, Patricia. Sherlyn, are you using headphones? Sometimes that interferes. Patricia, what happened with the pink boot?
With the what?
The pink boots.
I still have them. They're literally sitting in a pile.
We need to figure that out.
Yeah. So they're sitting in a pile. I have like a pile of like returns and boxes and other crap that literally just take up half my dining room. It's just like the pile of like random boxes I haven't gotten to. Yeah. And I have a book to give you as well.
Well, I'll be in Orange County on Monday and the following Monday.
Oh.
So I'll be up there for work, but I'm teaching. So we should try to coordinate.
Yes, absolutely. Which part of Orange County are you in?
Irvine?
Okay. I could drive up to Irvine. That's like literally 20 minutes from me.
Or I can stop on my way. Well, it would be late because I'm done teaching at like 10 p.m. We'll figure it out.
I'll feed you. Not that there's any food that is open at 10 p.m. where I'm at. Like literally everything closes at like 8 p.m. We're just like, okay, I guess there's Domino's.
Right. I mean, Cinesticks get me every time though. You know, that frosting dip. Oh my God. Sherlyn, you might want to try leaving and rejoining. Oh wait, I think I heard you though. Oh, well, she's gone.
Oh, by the way, we actually have a meeting tomorrow.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So we'll talk
I saw that.
Okay, great.
Grace, we need to have a chat.
Okay.
I mean, I know you know that, but
yeah,
I've been waiting to email you.
I just have a question on the free course. If my password stopped working, do you email hello at FD?
You have to reset your password because we changed stuff for a single sign-on. So you just have to reset your password and that should fix it. And if you have any problem,
it won't work because it says we're sending you a new password, but it never sends you one. But I don't want to interrupt the meeting tonight, but can I email hello, and
one of my team will get back to you.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. We're not going to start for a little bit.
Okay, so email hello and somebody will help me, right?
Yep.
Thanks.
Of course.
The PT review was awesome. It really helped me a lot. Thank you so much.
Oh, good. I'm going to do another one, I think.
Which one is it gonna?
I think I'm gonna do the July one, do like a thorough breakdown of it. Like tonight I'm gonna cover the basics, like we're gonna go over the issues and stuff and what you needed to do. But usually to go like really in depth and do a PT and like break it down. And I want to do one a workshop. It's like, okay, well, how do you do it in person? Because everything else that I've posted is about doing it online and remotely. So I'm going to do another one that's how do you do a PT in person then? How is it different? I'll talk about some of the different strategies, but I'll do that I'm trying to figure out the date, probably about 2 weeks.
Okay, cool. And then I'll talk to you again. I might be interested in taking the course. Thank you so much. You're very nice. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks. Charlene, I still can't hear you, but can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, there, I can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear me now?
Yeah.
Perfect. Hi.
Hi. I love doing these sessions. I don't know why.
Thank you so
It's
much.
stressful for me to do it and put together. And there's like almost 300 people registered, which is like, oh, but I love doing it.
So tonight you're gonna go over PT and the essay? Or?
I'm gonna go over the essays and the PT, but it's impossible to go through the PT really in depth. So I'm gonna do like probably an hour and a half long PT that's like session in like a week or two, like really breaking down this one, but also talking about how to do the PT in person, since it's, if those of you that have just taken it remotely have prepared for that. But if you've done it in person, then, or if you haven't done it in person, I want to go over like the differences. So we're gonna do that in a couple of weeks. I just honestly need to have my, I have to do it from a different computer
When
for
is your
silly tech reasons.
course starting in a couple of weeks now? Your PT course starting in a couple of weeks?
It starts on the 14th. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it starts on the 14th. I think you're signed up for that, right?
No, I'm gonna sign up. No,
Oh, okay.
I'm going to sign up. Is it still room, right, to sign up?
Yeah. You can still sign up. We're not going to get started till about 10 after, everybody, just so you know. So if you need to like grab water, go run and use the loo, like anything like that, like stuff a quick bite, take a shot of vodka, whatever you need to do before we look at all this stuff. Or tequila or whiskey or scotch. No, I'm just kidding. Sort of.
Maureen, this is Erica. I have one question.
Hey, Erica.
Hi, I did the PT last for July. Obviously, I'm here again. Do I need to re-renew it, or how does that work for signing?
No. We'll automatically re-enroll you. So like right now we're going through the list of everybody.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So like if anybody that takes like my essay course or my PT course or like my full course or whatever, if it doesn't work, if like you have to retake the test, I just like put you back in it automatically. So we're going through it. I'll mention it to you, right? Like I'll mention it to my team.
Okay, yeah.
Now.
Okay, perfect.
But we're going through those lists. Like that's something it just takes a minute. Hi, Katarina. Thanks for having your camera on, and Sherlyn. I appreciate that. I'm so used to talking to black boxes with names. I know people are there, but it's so nice to like, actually see faces. Although I'm sure most of you wishing we're not here. Hi, Lucine. I haven't heard from you yet. I thought I would get a message from you.
But I was, I just was kind of devastated, I guess, for a moment, and then just kind of, just coming out of that. But
I get
I'm here.
Good. I'm glad you're here. Glad you're here.
I think for me, and it was more of the drama of the tech issues and all of that stuff.
Hard.
And if you fail on your own, you can kind of accept it. But if you're having all kind of other problems, then it's harder to accept.
Brutal.
But I'm here.
Good. And you should set up an appointment to meet with us too. Shoot me an email. Because we'll go over everything with you. Yeah, we'll look at all that stuff with you, help you understand it, talk about all that. So shoot us an email.
Okay. Yeah, appreciate it. I will. Thank you.
Yeah. Larry Tran, how are you? I haven't seen you for a couple of years from law school. Maybe you're not there.
Does the PT course start in December or January?
December. It starts December 14th.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. In the course too, it'll have like a calendar of events, and there's a chance I'm going to have like another section of it live too, just because we get so many people that join it, and I don't like to have it too packed. So, but people also want to start late. So I'll probably have a course that starts sometime in January, but I do have one that starts in December. And as soon as you sign up for anything, also you get access to everything immediately. So like, you can watch the recordings. You can watch the recordings in the past time to like get the technique. And a lot of people like to do that and get a lot of benefit from actually like watching it and then joining live. Sometimes you'll get deeper, like you'll get a bit of a deeper understanding too. So that can be really helpful. It's all right, Larry, if you're shy, no voice, that's okay. Yeah, exactly.
Is there grading with that too, or does it get graded?
There's not grading. But like I do some activities in the class where I'll like have you write something and send it to me directly, and I'll give you some immediate feedback. But no, there's not like line by line, like detailed grading that doesn't come with it, but we do offer that. Our grading is just so detailed. We spend about an hour grading each essay and PT that we get. So it's really detailed. We go line by line and like, look at what you did right, look at what you didn't do well. Oh, I need to go close my window really quickly. I'll be right back.
Hi, Maureen. Now tell me, when will we be getting the registration information, the packet?
We're just going through. I'm hoping to get everything, all of it done in like the next week. I'm talking with my team to get all that taken care of. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, have you all looked at the essays in the PT recently? Have you all like pulled them up and looked at them at all? Sort of, yes, no. So I'm gonna pull them up. Oh my gosh, Joe, I haven't seen you since law school. I've taught at a couple of law schools. So sometimes I'm like, oh, there's my former students, and it's so exciting. And there are several of you here tonight, which is very exciting for me. Maybe not so exciting for you, but it's good to see familiar faces. All right, so I'm gonna have the questions pulled up and we'll talk about them tonight. Really what I'm doing is we've been assessing, like weeks ago, we went through the fact patterns on their own. My team and I, we went through them. And then like, especially too, since results have come out and I've looked at so many essays, I've gotten a lot of data on like, what are they really looking for? The selected answers aren't out yet. So there's still some stuff I have questions about, but I've seen solid passing answers in every single subject. We've seen several of that. I've also seen for so many people, I'm going to talk about the tech issue that happened as well, but let me just get this open. And I have just like some stuff overall on like how they grade, how that works, etc. So we're going to kind of cover some stuff that's like, I think a lot of people don't know, that a lot of people just don't know when they, about like how the bar is graded, like what that process looks like, and just some common mistakes, etc. In essays, PT. One, I'm going to talk about this at the end, but I think to go in depth into a performance test, as a lot of you might know, and because I've done these workshops where I just go into a PT, it takes about 1.5 hours to 2 hours. I'm going to do, I think in about 2 weeks, I'm going to do a workshop where I'm going to like literally go through step by step the performance test from the July 2021, and it'll be free. It'll be totally free, but I want to do that tonight. I'm going to go over all the basics, what you needed, etc. But so keep that in mind if that's something you're interested in. We'll post about it, and we also have like a mailing list if you want to sign up for that so that you can get informed of when we do stuff like this, just in case you don't see it on Facebook or wherever. So, okay, let me get my presentation up. Well, it's up, but let me get it going.
I'm sorry, where's your mailing list that?
If you go to bar-md.com, which I'll type in here, it has a little pop-up to sign up for our list. And you can also there, while you're on the website, if you go to like courses, there's a free workshops course, and you can access all of our free workshops. So like this workshop that I'm doing tonight, like I'll post my presentation there. I'll actually post a little bit more in depth, like documents that have the facts matched up to the issues, etc. So I'll be posting some of that information there as well, so that you can see like my answers a little bit. You can also see past workshops that I've done, free workshops that I've done, along with like model answers for things. So there's kind of a wealth of like kind of good free info in there too. So just throwing that out there. It's on bar-md.com. So today, students, applicants, this is how bar graders grade. So one thing to keep in mind that's really tough, that makes it really difficult, is that bar graders spend just 2 to 3 minutes on reading your essay, grading your essay. It's really, really, really fast. So that's why the way you organize is really important. And it's not just about organization. It's not just about headings. It's about organizing it so they can see the solid meat of analysis that you provide. That's why you have to do it. That's why you have to do it. So you have to organize really well so that it's really easy for them to be like to see that you did a thorough analysis of each particular issue that they were looking for. They don't really dig into the material to figure out like whether you've done what you need to do correctly. They look for keywords, they look for thorough analysis, and they don't look twice. So organizing it is all incredibly important. Some common essay errors, and I've seen this quite a bit. Going through essays, since Friday too, is failing to answer the call of the question directly, failing to use the specific facts. To write a passing essay, you have to use every fact in the fact pattern. So one thing for you all, when you're going back and looking at your essays, is to say, okay, did I use every fact in this fact pattern? If you didn't, that's an issue that you missed. So you want to really look for that. Lack of organization, that's just if you don't organize it well. If bar graders expect things in a particular order, if you don't follow that order, it's hard for them. They get like irritated and move on. So organization is really important, but it's also important so they can see your solid analysis. Spaghetti walling's another one. I saw this a lot in the Civ Pro essay. And a bit in the Torts one, just kind of like throwing everything and seeing what sticks. I see it in PR a lot. This one, it was actually like you needed to do quite a lot. There was a lot of different ways you could have addressed the issues. 5 is, failing to tackle the tough issues. For example, in the in the civil procedure essay, doing the claim preclusion, a really strong answer would have probably talked about, and I don't know that it was totally necessary, but it was good, is to address the primary rights doctrine in California because it was a state sitting in diversity. So there was a choice of law issue. That's a tough issue. And I was waiting for it to come, and there it was, but a tough issue that not a lot of people addressed from what I've seen. Poor writing, that is an issue, but I really don't see it very often. Like that's kind of rare. Number 7 is key. Number 7 is actually really, really key. This is something that I see a lot. So, and you should go back and assess. And if you haven't signed up, we do, and I do most of them. And I have some members of my team that do some too. But we do a free score review session where we'll go over your score letter and we'll go over your essays with you. So if you haven't signed up for that, sign up for that because it's really helpful. You can send me an email and we'll get you set up for that. But restating portions of the fact pattern or fact dumping is where you state a fact and you don't explain its significance. And I see people doing that all the time. It shows and it's great because I know that you know what facts are needed to address this issue. But the problem is there's not analysis. So it's not, people are like, well, I talked about that. I did use this fact, but did you actually demonstrate the legal significance of that fact? That's what you have to do. Failing to show work. So, that's just writing conclusory. Again, that's often stating a fact, not explaining the legal significance of it. There's also, sometimes you have to set forth an assumption. Sometimes you have to say, if there is a negligence suit and you don't think a duty is owed under Cardozo, you might have to say, assuming we are in an Andrews jurisdiction, then a duty would be owed, and then you move forward. So often setting forth an assumption requires, it's often when there is a counter argument. I should add too that not including a counter argument, generally I don't see essays get above a 60 without counter arguments. And that is something specifically when early on, I had a former bar grader on my team, and she helped us write the rubrics for how we grade all of our essays. And we talked a lot about this. And she said, to get a passing score, to get a 65, and it's still a 65 to pass, even though the cut score has been dropped from 1440 to 1390. She said, you have to have at least 2 counter arguments in every essay. So, and you want the good counter arguments, not just the easy ones. So not having counter arguments is another one. It's also failing to try, even if you don't have any idea. This, though, I think comes in practice. That is when you are studying. That's when you're studying. So when you are, you say I can't do a contract essay yet. I don't have my whole contract essay or outline memorized. You have more memorized than you know. You need to try. It doesn't matter if you do a terrible job at it. Try, see what you know, and identify what you don't know. So that's the biggest mistake I see in prep is really in prep is failing to try, even if you're I don't know, but let me just see what I do know. And you'll be amazed at how much you do know. 11 is really failing to be professional. I had someone who used to turn in essays where she would use the number 4 instead of writing out for this. This isn't texting, so just don't do that. I rarely see that in actual bar essays, but I have seen it in people's practice, and it's just avoid that. And a good friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, also ended her PT with a rhyme. She thought it was cute and funny, and I just the bar examiners, the graders, aren't into that, although she still passed, but still don't risk it. So I just wanted to kind of cover some of this stuff. So as you all look at your essays, you can say, okay, are these some of the mistakes that I made? Are these some of the mistakes that I made? Scoring for the July 2021 written portion. The score you needed on each written event to get a 1390 is about a 60.285, right? So you needed to get just over a 60 to pass. So this ranges, I think last time it was close to a 63, it was like 62, 63. It's been as low as 59 since the cut score has been reduced to 1390. So it's in there. So you really have to be shooting for 65s. The total raw written score you needed to hit a 1390 was about 422. I think it was just under 422, but it was about a 422. Most of the people that I'm talking to and doing score review sessions, that I've done like 80 in the last couple of days, so many people that were impacted by the tech issues. There was a prorata, and that's just been really unfortunate. So, but if anybody has questions about that at the end, about how it works, I'm happy to answer that, but I just wanted to mention it here. So that being said, let's start talking about some of these essays. And I have the essays pulled up here as well. So they don't give scores of like 60.285. So if you got all 60s, it wouldn't be passing. So you need to get at least some 65s to pass. So because they do give a 60 and then they go to 65. So if you get all 60s, though, that's not going to be enough. You're going to be just shy of the passing score.
Okay, you have to have a couple of 65 and then maybe 160s, right?
Yeah. And it might be higher. So a 60.285 is a little on the lower end. It could be a 62 or a 63, which means you really need 65s. And that's where like getting a 50 on something, especially on a PT, becomes really difficult to overcome. So there's got to be consistency across all the subjects. Yeah.
Got it.
Okay, let me do a new share.
Excuse me, is it possible to have the meeting ID and the password for this meeting for my friend, please?
I think you have to be registered for it. Hold on, let me see.
Yeah, I think
I'll post it in the chat.
Uh-huh.
Somebody just
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yep. Okay, so let me do a new share. Let me share okay, so sorry, we're gonna actually like look at some of these questions. I don't know why I'm saying sorry. It's like, sometimes it's like, oh, I don't want to see this again, but here we are. All right, so can you guys see both the PowerPoint? Oh no, maybe you can't see both. Hold on, new share. Now can you see both? Okay, so this first question was civil procedure, and there's a little bit of California civil procedure because it was a federal court sitting in diversity. So I'll talk through the fact pattern. I'm going to walk you through it, just a couple of things, and then we'll go over what issues you needed to address. So here it says, and let me see if I can increase. So Jiff, a California citizen who resides in Truckee, California, just west of Reno, Nevada, provides cleaning services. All right, so they're giving us some information on his jurisdiction, where he lives. At Jiff's request, customers submit written evaluations of his services so we can monitor their satisfaction. All right. Jiff entered into a contract with Shearer, a Nevada citizen. So I see, okay, there's diversity, but just because you see diversity doesn't mean that you're going to go through and do a whole subject matter jurisdiction analysis necessarily. And I think a lot of people jump to doing that, which I'll talk about. A Nevada citizen who operates a beauty salon in Reno, Nevada. The contract signed in Reno, so telling you where it happened, right? So that's where the events giving rise to litigation occurred, obligated Jiff to use due care in cleaning, which is really probably already required anyways. One night while cleaning, Jiff accidentally broke an antique vase, which Shearer claimed was worth $100,000. So there we see that it's like, okay, I can tell that we have diversity jurisdiction, or I can tell we have diversity jurisdiction via SMJ, which we're going to actually go into in the third issue. But a lot of people did it in the first. Shearer sued Jiff for negligence in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of California, which includes Truckee. The complaint alleged that Jiff's lack of due care caused breakage of the vase. Shearer moved to compel production of evaluations completed by Jiff's customers in the past year, and the court denied the motion. So now there's a motion to compel. There's a discovery issue, which means a few things. So following the trial, the jury returned a general verdict in favor of Jiff, and the court entered judgment on the verdict. Shearer did not appeal. They say there's a general verdict, so that means they're not giving us information for us to do issue preclusion. So it's really probably a claim preclusion issue here, which is odd Usually when there's res judicata collateral estoppel, you have to address both. So this was kind of funny to me that they didn't require you to do both. Although a lot of people still did, and I would still probably recommend it and do it just to be safe, but it really looks like it's just claim preclusion. 6 months later, Shearer sued Jif again in the same court for breach of contract. The complaint alleged that Jif's lack of due care caused breakage of the vase. All right, so that's the whole fact pattern. So we get 3 very specific questions here, which is very typical of a civil procedure essay. Very typical of a civil procedure essay. So was venue properly laid in the Eastern District of California? Discuss. Did the court err in denying Shearer's motion to compel? Discuss. And made Jif take advantage of the judgment in the first suit, defending against the second suit. So very specific calls here, which is very typical of a civil procedure essay. Also not the most common questions. Like the very common questions that we see in civil procedure are, SMJ, PJ, venue, although this had venue. So what you had to do here for the first call, all you had to do was you had to address, there are 3 ways for a court the venue to be proper. You just had to go through those 3 methods. And I do have all of them. I wanted to be able to get through everything in a timely manner, but when we're done, I will upload a document that like lists everything out and that also has the facts you needed underneath it as well. So all you had to do though was go through those 3 methods of venue. That's it, just the straight up venue analysis. The second one was pretty big. The second issue is pretty big. So whenever there's a motion to compel, there's a discovery issue. Usually you need to first establish what is the scope of discovery? What's the scope of discovery? It has to be reasonably calculated to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence, right? And it also has to be non-privileged. I have looked at so many essays that were like 55s and 60s that did not address that issue. Whenever there is a motion to compel, you have to establish that it's reasonably calculated to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence and that it's non-privileged, and explain why. So that was a pretty big thing that I saw a lot of people miss. I saw a lot of people miss that. And then the proper procedure for requesting documents after that. So going through a request for production, if they don't respond, then filing a motion to compel, the steps to go through for a motion to compel and meet and confer, etc. Going through all of those technical requirements. That's really what you had to do here. That's what you had to do here on this one. So call 2 was pretty large. It's a pretty big call. And I've seen a lot of people just go through the request for production, just go through motion to compel, not go through scope of discovery. And that's key. Whenever there's a discovery issue, you've got to deal with that. 3, Jif's ability to take advantage of the judgment in lawsuit number 1. So 1, there was a choice of law Erie doctrine issue. It's sitting in diversity. So a court may, because they're sitting in diversity, they might apply California rules. California follows the primary rights doctrine. So it probably wouldn't actually create a difference. It's probably the same primary right here, but like really good answer. This was probably one of those tough issues that people tackled, that would have been good to address here. And then going through both claim preclusion and issue preclusion. Even though it was really claim preclusion here, it wouldn't work for issue preclusion. You still want to just address both, even if you do issue preclusion briefly. So that's what you needed to do to get at least a 65 on this. And additionally, within this, you needed to have some good counter arguments as well. And there's probably some counter arguments of, was it reasonably calculated to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence? There's some of that, you could probably talk about it in there. You could probably talk about that, but any questions about that Civ Pro essay?
So I did SMJ for number 1 instead of 3. Like I did the choice of law all under question 1.
Yep. I've seen that a lot. And I think that threw them off. I mean, bar graders do want to give you the benefit of the doubt, but like doing something like that can kind of cause them to lose trust. And remember, that's why it's so important to always keep in mind that they're looking at this in like 2 minutes. So answer the question they're looking for. That's what you have to do. And a lot of people did that. Like so many people did that. And I understand why, but yeah, here you just had to go straight to the venue issue.
Maureen?
Yeah.
For the proper procedure for request for document, which fact pattern goes to? For
essay 1?
Huh?
It's for essay 1. What do you mean, which fact pattern?
No, I mean, for call of the question 2.
Yeah.
Is it the fact pattern? Is it paragraph 3?
Yeah, Shearer moved to compel production of evaluations, because if they're asking for evaluations, they're asking for a production of documents. So that's a request for production. That is the discovery tool that you would use. Yeah, and it says move to compel production. So it's a request for production. All right, let's look at essay 2, which is this PR. This thing was brutal. This essay was brutal. There were so many issues in so many different ways, and you're going to see that here in my list. Now, this isn't here. It was kind of a variety. There were different ways you could go about addressing particular issues, but this one was really kind of brutal. Dan, are you agreeing that it was brutal? All right, so let's talk about this one. And there is one really interesting thing, because we've seen so many essays. I saw like a 55 and a 70 that like really didn't look that different, except there was like a couple of little issues that weren't addressed. So yeah, and the analysis is different. But so here, yes, Teresa, I will absolutely post this presentation in my free course workshop. Everything gets posted in there. So like once we process the video, everything will get posted. So here we have Laura is a lawyer, typical. She practices family law in a suite she shares with Alex, a tax attorney. So they're sharing a suite, sharing an office. This is really common practice. It's really common practice, but anytime they're sharing like that, issues can be created. Laura and Alex share a conference room, a printer, and a receptionist. The receptionist, so I see a couple of things here. So one, there's a printer, and we know there's an issue with this printer because there's some information, but lawyers need to know that they're dealing with confidential information all the time, and that if you print something, sometimes it sits there. So that can create an issue. And also a receptionist, you're sharing them and it's two different practices. There may be an issue because of that. All right, the receptionist is Laura's son, Sam. That's obviously there could also be a potential duty of loyalty, a conflict of interest there, given that Laura's going to want to protect her son, which is what she ends up doing. Laura and Alex each use separate letterhead, business cards, and telephone numbers. So they're very obviously, have their own distinct practices. Laura represented Wendy, who was divorcing her husband, Henry. So this is, going to create an issue, obviously. Laura filed a request for child support from Henry. In his financial statement, Henry claimed that he had no significant assets and that he lived alone. Wendy told Laura she suspected Henry was not being truthful, that he had more income and assets than he claimed, and that he lived with and shared expenses with his girlfriend, Ginny. So there's some serious stuff. So Wendy tells Laura this. Laura probably needs to look into this stuff. So does she? So one morning while picking up papers from the office printer, Laura saw and read a document addressed to Alex left on the printer by Sam. The document was a property deed in the names of Henry and Ginny and listed Ginny's address as the same as Henry's. Henry had not disclosed the property on his financial statement. So there's an issue there. I'd probably say this is a duty to report, but Alex had received the income from Ginny, whom Alex represented on a matter unrelated to Henry's divorce. So there's a lot built in. Like this paragraph here, the one morning, that's where really all the issues come up. There's issues that are set up in the paragraphs before, but it's a ton here. Because Laura did not want to get her son into trouble, she never mentioned the property deed to Alex, Wendy, or the court. Wendy received a lower award of child support from the court than she should have based on Henry's incorrect financial statement. So huge conflict of interest due to Elle having her son. So let me go through these. So the L's ethical violations. One thing I want to mention that I've seen a lot of people do, duty of loyalty is conflicts of interest. I see people saying duty of loyalty and addressing it as one issue, and then conflicts of interest and addressing it as separately. But duty of loyalty is the number one big issue within PR. Comes up a lot. You can almost always find a duty of loyalty issue. There's also, remember with duty of loyalty, there's potential conflicts and actual conflicts. And there's a distinction. There's a California and federal or ABA distinction. So that's why you need to know the potential versus actual. So potential violation for L hiring S. So L hiring S, is there an issue there? Potentially, it could really go either way though. Actual violation, there is absolutely an actual violation there's a violation, duty of loyalty, because Elle chose to protect her son instead of acting in her client's best interest. So once that happened, that was absolutely a violation. That's a big problem. So it's a personal conflict. A duty of loyalty for sharing an office. This is something I don't think you really needed to do, but it was there. There were facts for it. I don't think it made a big difference, but where you could, and this is, I think, a tougher thing to see. And I was kind of impressed. I was I didn't think of this initially, but it's likely not a conflict, except if you share an office with another lawyer, in this situation, there might end up being confidential information exposed. So you might want to disclose that, especially in a situation like this where I'm representing, L's representing W, and Alex is not in the divorce matter, but Alex is representing the, future ex-husband. Wendy might want to go to a different lawyer. Like Wendy might say, like, I don't trust this. Like, I don't want anybody in this office having any interest in representing my soon-to-be ex-husband. So that might be a bit of information to convey. So there maybe is an issue there. I think it might be a duty to communicate issue, but that could be a conflict of interest. But I think that was in disclosure, right? Disclosure there. Duty of competence. There was a failure to follow up on L's concern, Ray H's assets, especially once it was actually confirmed. So there's a duty of competence because she didn't do anything about it, especially once she found out. This is the next one is the big one. That's why I put an asterisk next to it. This is what I've seen as the big difference between a lot of passing or like high scoring and not high scoring is a duty of competence for technology. That's a new rule. That's a newer rule. So they're testing some of the newer rules. So the sharing of the printer. So understanding like they should have had their own separate printers, like really, and that would have helped resolve a lot of these issues. But that issue right there, that issue right there is a big one. And I think that's been a big difference. There's also the duty to communicate. Elle should have communicated the development about her son to the client. She should have told Wendy because that was significant. The duty of fairness, there was also an inadvertent disclosure. So duty of fairness to opposing counsel, there was an inadvertent disclosure that happened here. She should have probably told Alex what she saw, and she didn't. And then a duty of candor. Elle didn't mention, she hid information from the court. So she knew that she hid information from the court. This had a negative impact. Wendy received a lower award of child support than she should have based on the incorrect financial statement. Laura knows that this is an incorrect financial statement and she did nothing to correct it. So that's a problem. So tons of issues. Did you have to address all of these? No, but a solid mix of these, and like definitely some loyalty issues, some competence issues. I mean, there's a lot in here. There's a lot in here. I think the thing you maybe really didn't need is that duty to communicate, but I really think that there's a lot built in here. Then Alex's ethical violations, duty of confidentiality. He needed to take steps to protect his client's information in a shared office. But you could raise a counter argument here. You could raise a counter argument here that, maybe he did. Like, what is reasonable? Like, was it reasonable to share a printer? Did things not get, mixed up very often? Duty of loyalty, potential conflict arising from a shared office. And again, this is really the same as the other. You could have addressed it here because it was Alex's client's information who was revealed. You might have wanted to disclose to the client again, and the duty of competence technology. So lots and lots in this PR essay, and like PR essays tend to go like one. I think this essay was really tough because there's so many issues, and it was sort of hard to figure out what the issues were. One thing, think of always, one thing I encourage people to do is think, okay, well, what's the duty here? What's the duty and what fact? And so like duty regarding this fact, and kind of go that way, break it up and just make sure you're addressing every fact and all the potential violations. Again, use every fact in the fact pattern.
I was just reading my answers. So I kind of spotted the issues. I was confused and I said that it was a close call regarding the duty of confidentiality, for example, because he didn't share actually what he saw in the printer. He shared with the mom, but then it didn't go farther and the mom didn't get advantage of that. Then do you conclude that she didn't? I did conclude that she didn't violate the duty of confidentiality. I don't know.
He did though, Alex did.
Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Because he revealed information that is confidential and privileged to somebody else. Like, it doesn't matter that it didn't end up like hurting him. Like, you can't disclose it. Like, I can't share any of my clients' information with you, even if you don't use it. It's a violation.
Okay. And the second one, just quickly, duty of fairness. As you said, I mentioned it, and then I said that it's inadvertently material information from the other attorney. The lawyer must inform the other party and then return immediately to the other attorney wherever he got it. Must refrain from acting illegal or in violation of the rules conduct. What is actually the conclusion?
Oh, I think there was a violation here.
I said it is, but it's debatable, so I don't know.
I don't think it's super debatable. I think it's a violation here. I think it's a violation. Yeah, because she didn't do what she was supposed to do. You have to follow the rule and disclose and do all of that. She didn't do it. She chose to protect her son's interests over her client's interests and over her ethical obligations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right, let's go on to everybody's favorite, which was this torts one. I mean, not everybody's favorite. Yeah, was that? I just saw you do the like, well, yeah, that was brutal. Okay, let's talk about essay 3. And this is still, so this question is so ridiculous. It's so insane. And organizing it was kind of funny. They classified it as a strictly torts questions, but I don't know why they kept saying state hospital, that it was a public hospital funded and managed by state. But they didn't list it as a torts con law essay. They just listed it as torts, even though to me there's definite markings of con law and really just 11th Amendment. All right, let's talk through the question. So state hospital, a public hospital funded and managed by state, entered into a contract with Cook's Catering, a business owned and operated by Kimberly Cook, to provide on-site meal service to patients, staff, and visitors. Recently, Denise Davis, the CEO of State Hospital, received a series of anonymous email messages threatening to carry out a massive attack at the hospital. In response to these threats, Davis decided to reassign a security guard from patrolling the kitchen area to patrolling the hospital lobby and entrance area. Sounds pretty reasonable, right? Like that's like, okay, if you think a massive attack is going to be like, we see all this like violence and like guns and, attacks like that. So seems kind of reasonable. We'll talk about that. So there's a counter argument there. Davis did not share the information concerning these threats with anyone else at the hospital. She maybe should have done that. So there's an issue there. There's a little bit of an issue there. Sorry, I just saw your chat, Patricia. Several days later, Frank, a former patient, entered the hospital kitchen shortly before lunchtime and mixed peanut powder into a serving tray full of mashed potatoes. Obviously, this is problematic. Neither Kimberly Cook nor any of her employees were present in the kitchen at the time because they had all left to use the restroom. Everybody at the same time had to go. So kind of a wild situation. Like, is that foreseeable that nobody's going to be in the kitchen at the time? Like so there's a question about superseding intervening cause there. A state health code, as soon as I see a statute, negligence per se, provides that food served in a hospital must never be left unattended before, during, or after meal service in order to prevent contamination or tampering, which is directly applicable here. At lunchtime, Patrick, a patient, consumed the mashed potatoes. Patrick, who had a serious allergy to peanuts, suffered severe injuries, so he suffered damages. But he has a severe allergy, which as soon as I mention peanuts, there's going to be a peanut allergy, but he's got an eggshell plaintiff or eggshell skull plaintiff. Patrick sued Cook, Davis, and State Hospital. Cook was found negligent for failing to comply with the state health code. So we have 3 questions here. Is State Hospital liable for Cook's negligence? Discuss. Does State Hospital owe Patrick a duty to protect him from Frank? And what defenses, if any, may Davis reasonably assert against the claim that she was negligent for her decision to reassign the security guard from the hospital kitchen? So before I go into each issue, I want to mention a couple of some kind of funny organizational things on this essay that I think threw people off. So a state hospital liable for Cook's negligence, that's, again, everything I said about state hospital, it's publicly funded, it's managed by state. That sounds like a bit like it's a government agency, which makes me think 11th Amendment, and he's suing for damages. So that raises sovereign immunity, but they didn't classify it as that. So I'm curious to see when the selected answers come out, what they picked. So, but for parts 2 and 3, so 2 is obviously sounds like, negligence, but they're just asking, does he owe a duty? So it's a narrower question. And then 3 asks what defenses. And I've seen a lot of people, which is so natural, jump to actual defenses, but you have to remember that it's a defense that you didn't breach, that it's a defense that an element is not satisfied. So that there wasn't a breach, there wasn't causation, there was some superseding intervening cause, those. And then eggshell plaintiff isn't a defense, but still, we're going to talk about that because it's an issue. So this essay was a little funny, and I think people struggle with it because they're like, there's no defenses. Like there's no like traditional defenses, not like contributory negligence, comparative fault. Like there aren't any, there's no assumption of risk, right? Like there's none of that, which is what we traditionally think of. How many of you guys like felt that? Like, can you tell me, can you click raise hand if you felt that when you were in it? Like, what do I write about for the defenses here? Yeah, that's what I thought. I know there's like a ton of you that feel that. So one thing to remember, you don't all have to raise your hands, but I've seen it a lot. I've seen it a lot in looking at essays, is it's a defense that an element is not satisfied. That's a defense. And like this comes up in MBEs all the time too. It's like, what is the best defense? A better defense than like contributory negligence is that there wasn't a breach or that a duty wasn't owed. Like the higher up in the negligence chain you go, the better it's a defense, the better of a defense it is. Because with negligence, like first, it's like baseball. It's like duty. If there is a duty, then you go on to, what's the standard of care, and then you go on to breach, right? And then you go on to causation, and then you go on to damages. So it goes in order. So yeah, so I think that really threw people off the way that it was phrased. So that was tough. So there are, so one thing, a big thing to remember, and they're not going to phrase the next one like just like this, but something to keep in mind, it happens all the time in MBEs. So you can take that and remember it for your MBEs. So remember that for torts, MBEs, negligence MBEs. So the issues you need to talk about for the first one was really going and talking about vicarious liability, employee versus independent contractor. I'm going to get to that, Lavinia. Vicarious liability, employee versus independent contractor. So you needed to go in depth here, do that whole debate, because it's a private contract with Cook's Catering. It's a business owned and operated by Kimberly Cook. She's providing on-site meals to staff. There's not a whole lot of facts in here to say like, was she using her own knives or somebody else's knives, etc. But I'm probably going to like lean towards employee on this one. But you had to go through and do that whole analysis. Yeah, no. And like, okay, so somebody just said in the chat, I wrote about vicarious liability, but during the exam, they thought they were so wrong. You got, that's like, it feels so uncomfortable, but like it's often right. So like that's why it's so important to write so many essays, close note timed, because you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, feeling like you don't know what you're doing, and then seeing that you get it right. That's key. It's so key. I also in this call would have addressed sovereign immunity, 11th Amendment, that the state doesn't appear to have consented to being sued here. So they might be liable, but they're going to have a defense of sovereign immunity. Then state hospitals' duty to protect P. So duty, addressing both Andrews and Cardozo, is a duty owed. If a duty is owed, then addressing the relevant standard of care. So here, there's quite a few that you could talk about. It's not an innkeeper. This isn't great. Frolic or Detour is vicarious liability, but here that's really about the employee. This was somebody else that did that. That's somebody else that did it. This isn't an innkeeper, even though it's a hotel. Yeah. Independent contractor. Yeah. So it's good that you address it, but did you go through did you weigh everything? Then sovereign immunity. And then going through, okay, so duty is a duty owed. Then what's the standard of care? You have to think about what are all the possible standards of care. You always do reasonably prudent business, right? But then also landowner to invitee. So this was a landowner. So it's a hospital. They're coming on to, they're an invitee. The patient's an invitee. There's also, because the CEO received this series of anonymous messages, she may have had an affirmative duty to act. So talking about that, did that create a standard of care? And then also negligence per se because of the statute. So what's the standard of care? What's the standard of care? All right. So this required a lot of different discussions of standard of care. And yeah, so that's a big takeaway too. Often people just do reasonably prudent business, or they just do one. If there are several different ways you could do it, like a plaintiff lawyer argue all of these, right, in real life. So if there are several that look promising, and here there are, you've got to discuss them. And then breach, argue that there's no breach, but go through them all. So this was the defenses. So the defenses is, I didn't breach, right? That's a defense, but is that going to prevail? And there's a lot of ambiguity here. Like she sent the security guard to the entrance. That's probably reasonable. It's probably reasonable, but maybe she should have hired more security, had people stationed all around, had, known where are their vulnerabilities? Like, here's where you have to come up with some stuff and say like, well, what are the alternatives? Especially because it's an invitee, affirmative duty to act. Somebody's threatening a massive attack. There's not just one type of attack, right? Like there's not just one type. So you have to kind of get creative and think about the different types of attack. And then negligence per se, it's probably going to be a violation of negligence per se. Because of the statute. All right. And then, so going through that, and then causation, actual would be pretty easy. proximate though, superseding intervening cause of cook and all the staff leaving the kitchen unattended. How foreseeable is that? So here there was a real big proximate cause issue. They haven't done that in a while. Made a big, strict liability is, no, sorry. And then damages, eggshell plaintiff. You would raise that, but it would lose because, as long as it was foreseeable, as long as you're negligent, you're responsible for the extent, but you would definitely talk about eggshell plaintiff here. So that's this one. This one was really heavy negligence, but it was just done in kind of a weird way. I don't know what faux test is. All right. But yeah, so this one was tough. This one was really, really tough. Oh, the but for, that's actual causation. Which is here. That's easy.
Sure. I have a quick question. For the third portion of it, I've heard some people say that they mentioned the business judgment rule. I think because they saw that Davis was a chief executive officer.
Yeah.
I actually had a freak out moment thinking that was a major portion of the question. And like, I didn't mention it in my answer, but it seemed like a lot of people did. But I'm guessing it was not actually an issue.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I mean, I that's interesting. I've looked at a bunch and I haven't seen that. I think the CEO part is more of like her affirmative duty to act. Yeah. But that's also more dealing with like shareholder issues. And this is a negligence issue.
Right.
So that's why I don't think so. Yeah. But I'll be here. I mean, we'll look at the selected answers when they come out. So when the selected answers come out, what we do is you take both and you look at them and you look at where there was overlap. And that tells you what they were looking for. Anything that's in both is what they wanted for like a passing answer. No, probably not for call 2. No, not for call 2, because it's just saying the question is state hospital's duty to protect. Like, did they have a duty? Yeah. So, but you would have had to do it for number 3. So really, if you did it all in call 2, that was probably okay. But like, did you argue no breach, no causation, etc. as defenses? That's the tricky part. Is arguing those as defenses. The model answers are going to come out sometime in December. It's usually late December. All right, let's talk about number 4, which is the lovely Crim Pro essay. This one I think was, I've seen some lower scores on this one, but this one seemed, after the Torts essay, this one felt like a little bit of a breather. Still not simple. So the tough thing is I think a lot of people came to the wrong conclusion on the first issue. So this is Crim Pro. So people are asking about the traditional defenses, like none of them applied. You really had to address those other elements as being not met, and that's the defense for the torts one. All right, so let's talk about Crim Pro. So Detective Anna was about to subject David, who was lawfully in custody, to interrogation because she had received a tip from an anonymous informant that David was involved in transporting heroin. So there's there's an anonymous informant, I think of that. But she's lawfully in custody and she's going to interrogate him. Detective Anna advised David of his Miranda rights and asked him if he knew anything about heroin shipments. David replied, "I'm not sure if I need a lawyer or not." Saying, remember, a request for a lawyer must be unequivocal. This is that he's equivocating here. I'm not sure if I need a lawyer or not, right? All of us know to tell anybody ever, say like, I want my lawyer, and stop talking, right? Detective Anna next asked David how he was transporting the heroin. David responded, "If I had anything to do with it, I would use my car." Detective Anna released David from custody when he refused to answer any more questions. Detective Anna then sent a message to all police officers describing David's car, stating that it was believed to be involved in transporting heroin. When you send out a message to all police officers, is that an APB? I was watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine and they used that term. Anyways. Later that day, Officer Baker, Teresa, but what I want to know what it stands for. Later that day, Officer Baker, who had heard—
All Points Bulletin. Sorry.
Thank you.
I watched too many crime shows.
Later that day, Officer Baker, who had heard Detective Anna's message, saw the car described in the message. Officer Baker decided to follow the car to see if the driver would do anything that could justify stopping the car. That's a pretext. It's going to be an automobile stop. When the car ran a red light, there's a violation. He can lawfully pull him over. Officer Baker stopped the car and ordered the driver, who was in fact David, out of the car. Officer Baker then did a pat down, search of David, and found a cell phone in his pocket. Okay, so he finds a cell phone and then he's going to search it. So there's a pat down and then there's a search of the phone. Those are two separate things. I've seen people not really addressing each of those events individually. So we're going to walk through this one. Oh, thanks, Jacqueline. You got it too. Officer Baker turned on the cell phone, saw a text message icon, clicked on the icon, and found a message to David stating, "The heroin is in the trunk, deliver it to the warehouse." So that's a search. You have a reasonable expectation of privacy in your cell phone, especially it was closed. It was not just like on the screen in plain view. etc. Especially, yeah, anyways, it's going to go on a tangent there, but I will refrain. Officer Baker then searched the trunk of the car where he found 30 pounds of heroin. He arrested David and arranged for the car to be taken to the police impound lot for processing. Yeah, for processing. I don't think it's 6. It's really 5th and 4th Amendment issues here. It's really 4th and 5th Amendment. So 5th one is 5th first, and then the other 2 are 4th. All right, so then we're going to go through all 3 of these. So the statement, if I had anything to do with it, I would use my car. So this is 5th Amendment right to counsel. 5th Amendment right to counsel. So is this a custodial interrogation? Yes. Request for counsel waiver. He waived his right because he said, I'm not sure if I need a lawyer. And then he started talking. It has to be knowing, voluntary, and intelligent. So he said, I'm not sure if I need a lawyer. She keeps asking questions. She is allowed to. He was given his Miranda rights. Once he is given his Miranda rights and chooses to keep speaking, it's generally going to be knowing, voluntary, and intelligent. So this statement is admissible. A lot of people in crim pro just assume it's all inadmissible. Like they suppress it. But like here, like you really have to just go through methodically and apply the law. And here it actually would be admissible. This statement is admissible. I saw a lot of people come to the wrong conclusion here, and that I think hurt people. Then the text message, right? So 4th Amendment, government conduct, right? Government conduct. And I usually do government conduct and the reasonable expectation of privacy, but here, because there was 2 things with the text message, there was the automobile stop and then the Terry stop, the pat down. I did a reasonable expectation of privacy in each place searched. So I did the automobile stop, the fact that there was a pretext, he was following him. There's a lot of different stuff you can use in here. So 1, there was a pretext. 2, there was a tip from an anonymous informant, but so there's like, okay, well, is that enough? But the anonymous informant then is also combined with that custodial interrogation where he made that pretty terrible statement. So it's probably okay. So you might actually address here the anonymous informant, which I should add to this. I thought about it later after I'd finished putting this together. So automobile stop, does he have a reasonable expectation of privacy? Does he have a reasonable expectation of privacy in the car? Yes, but you can do a pat down, etc. But there was a pretext. Then the Terry stop, the pat down. Do you have a reasonable expectation of privacy in your phone? Yes, you absolutely do. Because that was violated, you would exclude this. This is subject to the exclusionary rule. Then you go on to the next one, the heroin in the trunk. You go again, do the automobile exception. You do the automobile exception here. Warrant, yeah, these are all exceptions to the warrant requirement. And here, so this is the difference between the exclusionary rule and the fruit of the poisonous tree. The heroin in the trunk is fruit of the poisonous tree of the text message that was illegally found. So really understanding the distinction and how that works. So this one had fruit of the poisonous tree at the end there. So this one, not as crazy of an essay, as long as you know your 5th and your 4th and 5th. This one was all right. This one was all right. Any questions about this one?
I have a quick question. I did not pass this essay, and I literally wrote down everything you just ran through in your checklist. So you have any?
I would have to look at your depth of analysis. So like, I don't know, you don't have to tell me what your score was. Oftentimes when I see that though, it's usually the depth of analysis. It's like just stating facts and not actually explaining the significance of those facts. Like really, what was this? So it's probably in the analysis. But if you haven't done a score review, like schedule a score review session. All you have to do for anybody, let me just say this really quickly, then I'll probably get a slew of them. Oh yeah, and I would have mentioned inevitable discovery rule. Yes, I should add that here too. I meant to do that. If you want to do a score review, if you haven't done it yet, what you do is you send me your score letter, your essays, and your performance test to hello@bar-md.com, which I just put in the chat. Send all of that information, and then we will reply with a link to set up an appointment so that we can chat. So do that if you want us to go over it, because it's like an individualized session when we look at your essays and PT and like we look at your score, etc. So if you feel like yeah.
By the way, obviously we have our meeting tomorrow morning, but I'd actually like to forward to you my score. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, so please send that.
I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Maureen, you said you need the PT essays and what? And
the score letter, your actual essay files, and your performance test document. Okay. So I'll put it in here. Score letter. All 3 of those things. And once we get those 3 things, then we'll schedule the call. Humphrey, I scheduled yours because we had talked. But yeah, usually I don't even like give them the link yet. At the end, you put inevitable discovery for fruit of the poisonous tree. Inevitable discovery goes after it. Julia, that's fine. That's sufficient. It both goes to the same things. But if you didn't find that, then yeah, for other people, if you didn't do it that way, because we also have like a form you can fill out. All right. All right, let's look at this essay 5. So wills and trusts and community property, which was not a huge surprise. The thing that I find with community property is when it comes to doing a distribution, things get jumbled because of how people organize. So I'm just going to mention this here. I do an essay course. That's like an essay workshop course. And I do a PT course. I mean, we have like a whole bunch of different things, but in it, I show you like really strategically how to organize. I mentioned it a little bit here, but like how to address issues and strategies and all of that. But they're workshops. They're like $4.99 each. And there are a lot of sessions and they're all live and they're in the evenings if you're working. All right, so for this one, so in 2016, while single and living in state X, Hank downloaded a form will and filled it out. So he downloads a form and it's unclear because it says he filled it out. They love doing this. It's unclear if this is a formal attested will or if it's a holographic will. So you've got to go through both. Like they've done this where they said he filled it out. They've done it where they said he wrote, but we don't know if he hand wrote or like wrote in a form. Like I consider like writing on my computer, writing, stating because I have no children, I leave all my property to sis. Hank signed his will in the presence of only 2 disinterested witnesses. Hank did not realize that a valid will in state X requires 3 witnesses. So that's like for call 1, which I'll get to that in a minute. In 2017, while still living in state X, Hank married Wendy. After the marriage, Hank kept land he had inherited from his mother, titled in his name alone. So that's a separate property. Hank started working at a construction job and kept all of the wages he received from the job in a bank account that he opened in his own name. That's community property. Daughter was born to Hank and Wendy while they lived in state X. So then they have a daughter. State X is not a community property state. So this is quasi community property, which is weird because they just did this in 2019. They tested it and they don't test it all that often. They did it in February 2019, but they did it again here. Not that complicated, but good to know. In 2021, Hank and Wendy moved to California, which is a community property state. Hank suffered a fatal injury on the first day of his new job in California. Hank's got some bad luck. Hank never wrote any will after the state X will. At the time of Hank's death, there was $100,000 from his wages in his bank account, and he still owned the land inherited from his mother. In the probate of Hank's estate in 2021, claims have been made by sis, Wendy, daughter, and son, a 10-year-old child who has proved by DNA testing that he is Hank's son, although Hank never knew of his son's existence. Question 1, is Hank's will valid? Question 2, what rights, if any, do sis, Wendy, daughter, and son have in Hank's estate? Discuss. Okay, so first, is Hank's will valid? Right, so a tested will. You just got to go through all of the elements: capacity, testamentary intent, writing, witnesses. And then you would do, because we're in California, this should say state X requires 3 witnesses. You would do the harmless error doctrine. In California, you can apply the California harmless error doctrine to deal with the fact that state X required 3 disinterested witnesses. You would have harmless error and it would be harmless error. So this could be found as a valid attested will. If it's considered holographic, all of the components are written and it should be fine. But you'd have to just go through the formation of a holographic will. Why do we have revocation by operation of law? Oh, yeah, I think this is a really tricky issue. We saw this a bit, but revocation by operation of law, because he married in 2017 and had a daughter after, it could be partially revoked because he was subsequently married and had a child. So the gift to sis may be abated. That's really an abatement issue, but some people wrote about it as a revocation, which I don't prefer that, but really there would be an abatement, which comes up later. So what rights do sis, Wendy, daughter, and son have in Hank's estate? So you always, with community property, start with a general presumption, and remember to talk about quasi community property here. I always try to establish what are the terms of when is the marital economic community. So when does it start? When does it end? And then I like to go through and do a determination of the property. So determination of the property, the land is inherited separate property. The bank account, you have to talk about, so the land taken in his name alone, but it was an inheritance, so it's separate property. The bank account had community property, what would have been community property funds, but it's quasi community property because it was when they were in state X, but he took title in his name alone. So you have to deal with that. Then what you do, so you talk about the property, then you go through and deal with the legal issues related to each person prior to doing any sort of distribution. Prior to doing a distribution. If you try to go through each individual and do a distribution, you're going to get so thrown off. So don't do that, because there's going to be abatements and all this stuff. And if you do the wrong sequence, it's going to create problems. So go through the fact that there is an omitted spouse, right? He married Wendy, right? And she was left out. So there's an omitted spouse. So she's going to take her share. She's going to take her share through intestacy. Pretermitted child, the daughter, right? This was a will written before the daughter was born. So she is considered pretermitted. So she's also going to take an intestate share. A mistake regarding a living child, son. This is an omitted child. This is an omitted child, a child he was unaware of. Son gets to take as well. Son gets to take as well. And then there's cis lying out there, but cis isn't affected by any of these other pretermitted, omitted people. After you just determine how are they affected and how will they take a share, then you go through and do the distribution. Then you go through and you do the distribution and you go one by one. So Wendy's going to take her intestate share as an omitted spouse. Daughter's going to take, who's pretermitted, is also entitled to an intestate share. Son is entitled to an intestate share. And cis gets the residue after intestate succession, but she's likely getting nothing. Nothing's going to be left. So I think when it comes to doing this type of, when there's a lot of like omitted, pretermitted issues, then you want to really determine, will they take anything? And if so, how? Then you go through and do the distribution. And I didn't even include the distribution amounts on here because it honestly doesn't even matter. I think the wife is going to get 50%. Well, no, she get, I forgot, I meant to look at it, but it doesn't even matter on here. Usually like people get the amounts wrong all the time and it doesn't matter. What matters is that they're going to get their intestate share and then the daughter and the son. So that's wills and trust community property. Any questions? I've seen a lot of really high scores on this essay. I tend to see really high scores on wills and trust community property essays all the time. So, all right, y'all ready? Do you guys need a break? You want to talk about the PT? It's the last thing. Okay, let's talk PT.
What about the widow election?
The widow election?
Yeah. Well, I just mentioned that.
Yeah, I'm not like familiar with the widow election, but she's an omitted spouse. So like I would go omitted spouse. She's a widow. I have to go back. That's like a really nuanced thing. I think mentioning it wouldn't hurt, but you do need to talk about the fact that she's an omitted spouse. All right, let's talk about this PT. So a couple of notes. One, it was a closing argument that threw people off. Closing argument is still organized just like anything else, but you did have to do it as a closing argument and you had to be persuasive. That really, I've seen, that really seems to be the mix of people that like didn't set it up as a closing argument, addressing the court. This was very, very rule heavy. It was incredibly rule heavy. So because of that, you're going to need to be applying a lot of rules to the facts. There's going to be a lot of applying the law to the facts. You had to distinguish from Strom and analogize to Fawcett. This is since the bar exam went to the 2-day exam in 2017. Since it did that, I noticed that you have to distinguish every single time. You're always going to have to show that skill of distinguishing, and then analogizing is easier. I think that you really needed to do a counter argument with the blue pencil issue about why not just modify it, explain why not to just modify it. So you needed to deal with blue pencil, which was at the end of the Fawcett case, I think. And it really required a very heavy factual discussion and analysis. So one thing with PTs is that I want to mention, and I'm going to go into like I'm going to show you some more detail on this in a second, and you have to practice them a lot. One. And the reason you practice is because you have to get fast at setting up the performance test. You have to get fast at extracting the rules. You have to get fast at explaining the cases. So you have to build speed, and that comes through practice and looking at variety. So like often, like I have somebody that I'm working with doing one-on-one tutoring with PTs right now. And like, I'm just making sure she can do every setup quick. And then did you figure out all the headings quickly? Then, all right, are you getting all the rules? And are you writing those quickly? You're not doing too much. You're not repeating rules, getting that down. Then writing what I call rule proofs. Are you writing those? Are you doing it quickly? Are you doing it precisely? Because you've got to be able to get through that stuff so you can spend the time in the analysis. What I've noticed is a lot of people don't go quick. They don't go quickly enough through figuring it all out because it's hard, right? Because it's difficult. But it's through the practice and like really honing in those skills that you can improve your speed. So you can spend all your time doing an in-depth analysis of the facts. So that's what's really key with the PTs. Yes, like you've got to be able to do all this stuff. You've got to make the comparisons. The hallmark of a PT is comparing the facts of our case to a precedent case. So all of that. So I know it's a little small. Is it too small? I can turn is that a little bit better?
Yeah, can you go back to the other screen real quick?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. That's what a closing argument starts with. Today, we ask that you invalidate the covenant not to compete as it is wholly unenforceable on its face because It is not reasonable in time, geographic area, or scope. Additionally, modifying the covenant not to compete is not a viable option, as the covenants bear no relationship to Columbia Coding's needs. Or I think I might have gotten that name wrong. Is it Columbia Coding? I don't know, I'll fix it. So then the argument section. So like not having a persuasive closing argument intro hurt a lot of people, it seems, because it looks like you're not doing the right task. So then I had 3 headings, and I'm going to go through all of this in depth in a separate workshop. It's just too much to like actually walk you through the cases in this session. But Columbia Coding's covenant not to compete is unenforceable because it is unreasonable in time, geographic area, and scope. I'm really just repeating myself. Cases I'm going to use for this, Strom and Fawcett. Remember, I think I analogized to Strom and distinguished from Fawcett. Either way, I've said it in the last slide. And then I'm going to have subsections for time, geographic area, and scope. There was that. There was also another rule in here about that came after the discussion, I think in Strom. After the discussion of time, geographic area, and scope, there was another section of analysis with a new rule that talked about balancing the interests of the parties. So I put that into another section. So enforcement of the covenant would cause unfair harm to Mr. Morgan. And I go into all the balancing interests and I give that rule. I pulled that out. And then C, going through blue pencil and explaining why. And here there would definitely be some counter argument about blue pencil. The other issues, I think there was counter argument, I think, in the time. There's probably, because this one restricted it to 1 year. In other cases, we're saying if it's like 2 years, it was too long. And I think a little bit, there could have been a counter argument in the scope. The geographic area is it's like the entire state. So that was way too big. So this is just sort of like big picture. So that's sort of the nuts and bolts of what you needed to do for your PT. That's the nuts and bolts of what you needed to do. That's it, covering like the issues and the essays and in the PT. I have like a little thing here if you guys have an interest. Yeah, it's industrial sandblasting, B. Morgan. I don't know why I was calling it Columbia Coding. Industrial sandblasting. So I will probably do a workshop in a couple of weeks going over that and talking about like how do you do a PT on paper. Just a little plug, I do offer, and I mentioned this earlier, but we do have a whole bunch of different options if you're looking for help prepping for the February bar. I have a really in-depth essay workshop series that's like 8 or 9 workshops, go over essays really in depth. With that, you also get access to all of my past breakdowns where I've gone through like almost every topic that comes up on the bar, going through an essay, breaking it all down, talking about strategy, fact use, etc. So I offer that. It's $4.99 and you can split it up into 2 payments if you'd like. It starts on December 12th. And then I have the PT course, which is really, really popular as well. And it's 5 PT workshops and all of the workshops are about 3 hours. And I go through, the first one is the whole approach to doing a PT. The second one is all objective PTs. The third one is persuasive PTs. The fourth one is other types of PTs. So like I covered a closing argument in the other one. The one that I did. And I gave you like the template of like how to do a closing argument. So I have that. We also do like one-on-one tutoring. If anybody's struggling with their MBEs, the one-on-one tutoring is really, really helpful. I do a lot of that. We have grading and we have full bar prep courses too. So there's a lot of options and we'd love to help you, get to passing. Any questions?
Yeah, last question on the PT.
Yeah.
So was it because Columbia Coding was one of the companies in it. I remember it, but it was industrial that was suing Morgan.
Yeah. I just did the wrong thing. I just had a little, brain fart. So
okay.
it should have been industrial sandblasting. Yeah, I'll go in and fix that.
Okay.
Maureen?
Yeah.
How much is your 101 for MBE?
It depends on the number of sessions you're looking for. They're 45-minute sessions. For 10 sessions, it's $15.49. For 5 sessions, it's $7.99. I used to do them in hourly blocks, and now I'm doing them in 45-minute blocks, and I lowered the price accordingly. But it's still like, I know some people bought hourly before. This time I just made them shorter, just because it seems like 45 minutes is the right amount of time. And I was hard to track it, like how much time people had left. So
for the essays and the PT, if we take your workshop, the one with $4.99, are you also grading the essays and the PT, or are you just like teaching us?
I'm just teaching those. We do offer individualized grading, but our grading is so in depth that we can't offer it with the course.
Oh, I see. So you're just teaching. Okay, no.
Just teaching, yeah. But it's really in depth and you can ask questions. I teach them live. I stay on and answer questions. Usually like we want you to outline and read them in advance, etc. So it's really in depth. And I answer questions. Often I have you guys write stuff and send it to me in a DM and I give you immediate feedback and people love that. So there is feedback live too.
So what with the graded, what would be the price if you wanted essays graded?
It depends on how many you want. We sell them in packages I have to look, I think for 5, it's like $5.49. I think for 10, it's $9.99. And our prices, it's a little bit more than other places, but it's because we go so in depth. We go line by line and spend an hour grading it. Yeah. So a package of 10 is $9.99.
And that information is on your website?
Yep, it's all on the website. Everything is at bar-md.com. Yeah, at bar-md.com, and it's bar-md.com/shop.
Sorry, on the PT course, when you do each session, like the first session, like when you do the persuasive one or something, is it just one persuasive essay or is it several persuasive essays?
Several.
And then the next one, when it's objective, there's several objective essays.
Yep.
And so in one night, you'll be doing several objective essays?
Yeah, I usually do at least 2.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
And then we also, just as like another, I forget that we have it. We have a new thing that I created. It's $99. And I should mention this for MBEs too, but it's $99 and it's a whole database of like almost 40 years worth of bar essays categorized by issues that they test. So like, if you want to look at, if you want to know, like look at the freedom of speech essays, or if you want to do commerce clause essays, you can go to in this database, you can be like, okay, I want to do con law, then it gives you all the possible topics. And then you can say, okay, I want to do commerce clause, and it'll give you all the commerce clause essays, plus a little issue checklist of what we said you needed to get to pass. So that's kind of a cool little thing to like make sure you're covering all of your bases. So we have that. Plus we have an MBE workshop that we're doing coming up. Yeah, Larry, I do.
Maureen, you said in 2 weeks, you're going to do the workshop on the PT that you did tonight.
Thanks, Victor.
When do you have the MBE workshop?
The MBE, we haven't decided the dates yet. It'll be in December. I'm doing it. We did it before with Mary Basic and Tina Schindler.
Is it free or we have to pay?
That one's paid. That one's $99.
Oh, okay.
But it's good. It's good. We're doing it early because it's good to do it early.
Okay.
And by the way, very quickly, I just sent you my scores and all that stuff.
Perfect.
For
Thank you so
tomorrow
much.
morning. Yeah, absolutely. And and then the other thing was when are you going to be sending out the schedule for your the coming classes?
It should be posted. We can talk about it tomorrow. We can talk about it tomorrow.
Okay, very good.
Thanks, Humphrey. But yeah, Larry, send me a message. You can send me a message on Facebook and then we can get in touch. Thanks, everybody. Have a really, really lovely evening. And hopefully I see some of you guys soon in some of the courses too.
Thank you, Maureen. You're the best.
Thanks, Maureen.
Thank you very much, Maureen. Have a good night.
Of course. Bye, everybody.